Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Mantra.
This is Akashvani. Good evening and welcome to this edition of Market Mantra, in which we give you a complete update on the economic, business and stock market news of the day. I am Gaura Dhawanlal and with me is my co-anchor in Hindi, Vishal Sharma.
नमस्कार, मार्केट मंत्र के ताज़ा अंक में आपका स्वागत है। प्रतिदिन की तरह कार्यक्रम में हम लाएंगे आप तक आर्थिक, व्यापारिक और शेयर बाजार के नवीनतम समाचार और साथ ही उन पर चर्चा भी करेंगे। चर्चा के लिए हमारे साथ कार्यक्रम में ऑनलाइन विशेषज्ञ भी जुड़ेंगे। सबसे पहले हेडलाइंस के साथ हैं गौरा धवनलाल।
Thank you, Vishal. A quick look at the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi distributes 51,000 appointment letters to newly inducted recruits. Key domestic share indices end almost flat. Sensex closes below the 66,000 mark. Nifty ends near the 19,650 level. And Brent prices slip 0.5% to $92.75 per barrel.
प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने 51,000 नए भर्ती किए गए अभ्यर्थियों को नियुक्ति पत्र वितरित किए। प्रमुख घरेलू शेयर सूचकांक लगभग सपाट बंद हुए। सेंसेक्स 66,000 के निशान से नीचे हुआ बंद। निफ्टी 19,650 के स्तर के नजदीक आया और ब्रेंट कच्चे तेल की कीमतें 0.5% गिरकर $92.75 प्रति बैरल पर आईं।
We begin with today's first story. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today distributed about 51,000 appointment letters to newly inducted recruits under the Rozgar Mela through video conferencing. Speaking on the occasion, Mr. Modi said, Rozgar Mela stands as the government's dedicated effort to empower young individuals and strengthen their active engagement in the country's development. Congratulating all the newly inducted recruits who received appointment letters today, he wished that their resolve of services will lead to the achievement of the nation's goals. The Prime Minister said several women recruits have got appointment letters today. He said when millions of youth like the new recruits join government services, the speed and scale of implementing policies also increases. He said today's daughters of the country are making records in the fields of space to sports. Mr. Modi said women have always brought change in several fields with a new energy. He said today the country is witnessing historical achievements and decisions.
प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा कि भारत ने 2047 तक विकसित राष्ट्र बनने का संकल्प लिया है और देश अगले कुछ वर्षों में ही तीसरी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बनने की ओर अग्रसर है। उन्होंने कहा कि वैश्विक अर्थव्यवस्था में कठिनाइयों के बीच भारत का सकल घरेलू उत्पाद तेजी से बढ़ रहा है। उत्पादन और निर्यात में भारी बढ़ोतरी हुई है और आज देश अपने आधुनिक बुनियादी ढांचे में जितना निवेश कर रहा है उतना पहले कभी नहीं किया गया।
So we are delighted to welcome in the studio here senior business journalist Sushma Ramachandran. Sushma ji, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Right. Sushma ji, we just had our first story and about the PM Rozgar Mela. So wanting to understand from you that, of course, employment generation is a huge issue in the country, developing country. And of course, everybody looks at great excitement with anything to do with job opportunities and employment. So the role of Rozgar Melas in this, just wanted your outlook on that.
Well, these are occasions where people can come to a single point and find many employers available for them. They can come and register their name and, give their qualifications. And, then the employers also, for them, whether it's corporates or whether it is NGOs, whether it is service companies, small and medium enterprises, they can all come to a single point and get the type of people that they are interested in, or at least have a look at the applications in a very coordinated fashion. So this may be called Mela, but it is done in a very organized fashion. You know, the information is passed from the applicant to the companies and vice versa. So this is, and I think, of course, naturally for those who are unemployed, this is a very useful event where they can go and they can give their qualifications instead of going to individual companies, you know, it is available there, the data is available for companies to look at and companies set it out who they like. So this is an extremely useful event, the Rozgar Mela.
जी सुषमा जी, इंडस्ट्री की, उद्योग जगत की ये आम तौर पर एक कह लीजिए शिकायत रही है कि जो युवा हैं वो पूरी तरीके से स्किल्ड नहीं है। हालांकि सरकार अपने स्तर पर, केंद्र सरकार बहुत समय से स्किल इंडिया प्रोग्राम चला रही है, कई योजनाओं के जरिए भी युवाओं को उनको कौशल संपन्न बनाया जा रहा है। आपको लगता है कि अभी भी इस दिशा में कुछ किए जाने की ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि इंडस्ट्री की जो एक डिमांड रहती है कि एम्प्लॉयबिलिटी जो है, स्किल उनके अंदर जो है युवाओं में अभी भी वो स्टैंडर्ड नहीं उनको मिल पा रहा जो कि इंडस्ट्री चाहती है। तो अभी इस दिशा में और क्या कुछ किए जाने की आपको आवश्यकता महसूस होती है?
इसमें हमें अपनी जो बेसिक शिक्षा के बारे में हमें वापस जाना पड़ेगा। जो हमारी जो एजुकेशनल सिस्टम है, अब जो नई एजुकेशनल पॉलिसी लागू की जा रही है, जो नीति अभी अपनाई जा रही है, उसका फायदा जिसमें उन्होंने स्किल के बारे में कुछ मतलब स्किल ओरिएंटेड पॉलिसीज उन्होंने उसमें डाली हैं, ताकि स्कूल के अंदर भी आपको कुछ जॉब ओरिएंटेड आपको कोर्सेज आप बच्चे उनको फॉलो कर सकते हैं, कुछ सीख सकते हैं। तो अभी तक वो, लेकिन ये जो इसकी जो ये नीति का फल जो है कई कुछ 4-5 सालों के बाद मिलेगा। अभी जो है हमारी पुरानी नीतियों का फल ये है कि जो स्टैंडर्ड, मैं ये नहीं कह रही कि हमारी जो शिक्षा प्रणाली है उसमें कुछ खराबी है, लेकिन उसका ट्रेडिशनल आउटलुक था कि भी हम किसी बच्चे को हम पढ़ना लिखाना और उसको ये अरिथमेटिक वगैरह सिखाते हैं, लेकिन जॉब्स के लिए तैयारी, स्किल्स जो होती है वो हमने नहीं की है। और ये जो बहुत जरूरी है, कंपनीज बिल्कुल ठीक कह रही है, इसमें एक लैक्यूना है हमारी एजुकेशनल सिस्टम में।
Moving from, wanting jobs and job seekers to job creators, Sushma ji, your view on the startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem. A lot of incentivization has been done. Young people are naturally adventurous and risk takers. How is that ecosystem now faring after all these years of actually supporting the system?
I think that is an area where we are doing very, very well. We have so many unicorns have come up. That is, unicorns are those which are valued at $1 billion. And we even have decacorns, which are valued at $10 billion. Plus those who have not reached unicorn level, those which are just simple startups and which are trying to become companies, those have also proliferated in a big way. So there is a great entrepreneurial spirit in this country. And I think one of the big things is that the government has given a lot of support to the startup ecosystem. As you are well aware, as you are all aware, one of the big centers for the startup ecosystem is Bangalore. Another one is Hyderabad, and in Delhi also, Delhi, Mumbai. So these are the main areas where you have the large conglomerations of startups. And these have only multiplied, they have proliferated over the years. Some of them have gone into IPOs and they have done very well. So this is an area where India is certainly doing very well.
Sushma ji, in terms of microfinance support to this sector and SHGs, particularly with reference to opportunities for women, where are we positioned on that?
Well, I think that is an area where women entrepreneurs are not very satisfied with the situation. Studies have shown that, first of all, there are not as many women entrepreneurs as there should be. We should be having many more. Secondly, studies have shown that women entrepreneurs face many more difficulties in getting finance, in getting marketing opportunities, and ultimately making a success of their ventures. One of the reasons is perhaps that they're not taken seriously. So these studies are showing that, banks especially need to be more supportive of women banks because they're the ones who provide the credit. Government agencies also need to be more supportive, but we have to concede that this is more of a patriarchal society. This will take time. But certainly, you can see that there are many big companies, big startups, where we have had women as the promoters. For instance, in the case of Nykaa, in the case of some other big companies, startups have done very well. But broadly, the studies have shown that women face a lot of problems.
जी सुषमा जी, प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा कि देश तीसरी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बनने की ओर अग्रसर है और आज देश में आधुनिक बुनियादी ढांचे पे जितना निवेश किया जा रहा है उतना पहले कभी नहीं किया गया। रोजगार सृजन की दृष्टि से देखें तो आपको लगता है कि सरकार के स्तर पर अभी भी कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर अभी और बढ़ाया जाना चाहिए ताकि रोजगार सृजन और अधिक से अधिक हो सके, या यहाँ पर आपको कुछ संभावना दिखती है?
देखिए, सरकार काफी कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर कर रहा है। मेरे ख्याल में इस वक्त हमें प्राइवेट कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर की ज्यादा जरूरत है। वित्त मंत्री ने 6 महीने पहले कहा कि सरकार तो अपना निवेश कर रही है, लेकिन प्राइवेट सेक्टर कहाँ है? और वो सवाल मैं भी पूछना चाहती हूँ कि सारे इंसेंटिव सरकार ने दिए हैं, आपको प्रोडक्शन लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव स्कीम दी है जिसमें खैर बहुत प्रॉपर्टीज आगे आई हैं, और बाकी सारी सब्सिडीज हैं, इन्वायरमेंट बिजनेस फ्रेंडली बना दिया है। मेरे ख्याल से प्राइवेट सेक्टर को इस वक्त ज्यादा निवेश करने की जरूरत है। सरकार ने काफी मतलब ये तो रिकग्नाइज है कि हमारी सरकार ने इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इन्वेस्टमेंट के ऊपर काफी खर्च किया है।
Subhji, your views on government spending and actually creating infrastructure in the role of employment generation. Do you think that because the government has been actually playing a very, very important role and looking at probably more private investment into different ways to create more jobs, so the role of the government in infrastructure expansion, that is going to continue to be important?
Yes. Well, the government is always important. Governments all over the world are important in infrastructure expansion and investment, simply because infrastructure requires very large sums to be invested, and the returns come after a very long time. There's a long gestation period for these projects. Therefore, there are very few companies in the private sector which are specialized in infrastructure. We have, of course, many even in this country, but always there is a primary role of the government. For instance, in highways and in roads, the government has done a lot of infrastructure investments. Then you have, of course, in the construction and real estate sector, we have had the private sector is coming in, of course, has always been there, but there's been revival of the real estate sector. Here we have had the private sector coming in. So these are large areas, of course, development, airports. I mean, you are seeing this if you go to any big city, you will see that a new airport is being built in most of the big cities, whether it is Delhi, we're having Jeva Airport built, and in many other smaller towns. So this is a public-private partnership that needs to be done for infrastructure development.
Right.
जी, और अब रुक करते हैं अगली खबर का। शेयर बाजार की बात करें। प्रमुख घरेलू शेयर बाजार आज किसी बड़े उतार चढ़ाव के बगैर लगभग सपाट बंद हुए। बॉम्बे स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का सेंसेक्स 66,000 के निशान से नीचे बंद हुआ, जबकि नेशनल स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का निफ्टी 19,650 के स्तर के नजदीक बंद हुआ। कमजोर वैश्विक संकेतों के बीच दोनों सूचकांकों में आज मामूली गिरावट दर्ज हुई। सेंसेक्स 78 अंक गिरकर 65,945 पर बंद हुआ, जबकि निफ्टी 10 अंक नीचे 19,665 पर आ गया। व्यापक बाजार में बीएसई मिड कैप इंडेक्स में 0.09% की गिरावट रही, हालांकि स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स में 0.33% की बढ़त दर्ज हुई।
Key domestic share indices today ended almost flat. The BSE Sensex closed below the 66,000 mark, while the NSE Nifty ended near 19,650 points. Both indices fell marginally amid negative global cues. The Sensex finished 78 points down, or 65,945, while the Nifty settled 10 points down at 19,665. In the broader market at the BSE, the mid-cap index fell 0.09%, while the small-cap index gained 0.33%. In the Sensex index, which is a pack of 30 companies, shares of 15 companies appreciated, while 15 companies declined. Nestle India rose 1.6% and Tata Steel gained 1.2%. Bajaj Finance advanced 0.7% and Mahindra & Mahindra added 0.4%. On the other hand, IndusInd Bank and Tech Mahindra both declined 1.3% each. Kotak Bank fell 1.2% and Infosys slipped 1%. In sectoral indices at the BSE, 16 sectors gained while 6 logged losses. Telecom index gained 1%, followed by industrials, which rose 0.5%. On the other side, Bankex and IT both indices declined 0.5% each, while tech fell 0.4%. The overall market breadth was negative as shares of 1,803 companies appreciated, while 1,961 companies declined. A total of 129 shares remained unchanged. So we're seeing not very much. In fact, second day when the Sensex was almost flat, and also reports coming in that FPI inflows into debt market is down in September because of the rise in US treasury yields. So this narrowing of returns in India is maybe not as lucrative as it was before. Could this be one of the reasons why the market is really, because everybody was expecting the market to really actually take off during this time?
Yes. So this is, as you rightly pointed out, because of what is happening. A lot of the activity in the Indian stock exchanges is linked to what is happening globally. Now, in the US, the Federal Reserve has taken a very hawkish stance and said that you can't really expect many rate cuts in the days to come, and you may even expect more rate hikes. So these are, in addition, you have the concern of crude oil prices going up, which is going to increase inflationary pressures in the economy over here. So these are the worries of investors. The foreign institutional investors, as you say, they're going back, to where they're getting higher returns in the American markets, and they have been net sellers in September.
जी सुषमा जी, आईटी सेक्टर की बात करें तो आज आईटी शेयरों में बिकवाली दिखाई पड़ी है, और ये इन्फोसिस का लगभग 1% गिरा और टेक महिंद्रा में भी 1.3% तक की गिरावट देखी गई। आईटी शेयरों को अगर हम देखें तो जो अगली तिमाही में आपको लगता है कि कुछ सुधार की हम उम्मीद कर सकते हैं आईटी शेयरों में, या और इन पे जो इस समय दबाव देखा जा रहा है आईटी शेयरों पे, उसके पीछे आप प्रमुख कारण क्या मानती हैं?
देखिए, ये जो मैं अभी बात कर रही थी, यही है प्रमुख कारण कि आईटी स्टॉक्स का जो रुख इस वक्त जो नीचे जा रहा है, इस वजह से है कि उनकी ज्यादातर उनकी जो इनकम है वो बाहर से आती है, और वो भी अमेरिकी प्रोजेक्ट्स से। और इस वक्त हाई इंटरेस्ट रेट एनवायरमेंट की वजह से डर ये है कि कंपनीज अपना खर्चा कम करेंगे, मतलब आईटी प्रोजेक्ट के ऊपर खर्चा कम करेंगे। तो अगर खर्चा कम करेंगे तो ऑब्वियसली हमारी जो आईटी कंपनीज हैं उनको प्रोजेक्ट कम मिलेंगे। तो इस वजह से ये जो डर की वजह से आईटी स्टॉक्स अभी इनके ऊपर दबाव पड़ा हुआ है। तो ये वही वजह है जिसके बारे में अब मैं अभी बात कर रही थी। प्रमुख कारण यही है कि जो इंटरेस्ट रेट एनवायरनमेंट अमेरिका में है उसका असर यहाँ की आईटी कंपनीज के ऊपर आ गया है।
So, how does this augur for India, Sushma ji? Because the services sector has been one of the major contributors of, whether it's our looking at our balance of payments or whether even it's looking at our
Yes.
gross domestic product.
Yes.
And we have started depending a lot on that, at least our figures have. How does that augur for us?
Yes, sir, you're very right. It doesn't augur very well because services exports have been doing very well over the last 2 years, especially, of course, IT services. In fact, services exports have been growing much faster than merchandise exports. Even though merchandise exports have plateaued over the last 6 months, services exports have continued to grow. But if you have a scenario in the U.S. where the interest rate environment is going to deter companies from spending on IT projects, I mean, that's the apprehension, then you will find, a setback to IT services exports, which are large terms. Then we also have financial services exports and some other areas, but IT services are, of course, constitute the largest chunk.
So, if you have people who are holding IT shares in their portfolio, would it be sensible to probably, wait for a longer time, or is there a timeline that you are, in your view, looking at sensible to hold, or should they get out and probably move to areas which are likely to go up?
Well, I think IT is obviously in the long term is always, a good sector to be in. And this is, I would say, a temporary phase which is likely to be overcome probably in the medium term.
Right.
और अब रुपए के प्रदर्शन पर नजर डाल लेते हैं। विदेशी मुद्रा बाजार में रुपया आज $1 की तुलना में 83 रुपए 24 पैसे प्रति डॉलर के स्तर पर बंद हुआ। विश्व की 6 प्रमुख मुद्राओं की तुलना में डॉलर की मजबूती दर्शाने वाला डॉलर इंडेक्स दिन के कारोबार में 105.94 पर कारोबार कर रहा था। रुक करते हैं वैश्विक शेयर बाजारों का। एशियाई और शेयर बाजारों की बात करें तो अधिकतर एशियाई शेयर बाजार आज नुकसान में रहे। हांगकांग के हैंगसेंग में 1.5% की गिरावट दर्ज हुई। दक्षिण कोरिया का कोस्पी 1.3% लुढ़क गया। जापान का निकेई सूचकांक 1.1% और चीन का शंघाई कंपोजिट इंडेक्स 0.4% के नुकसान के साथ बंद हुए। सिंगापुर का स्ट्रेट्स टाइम्स इंडेक्स बिना किसी उतार चढ़ाव के सपाट बंद हुआ। यूरोपीय शेयर बाजारों में अंतर्दिवसीय कारोबार में मिला-जुला रुख देखा गया। समाचार तैयार किए जाने तक फ्रांस का कैक 40 0.7% नीचे चल रहा था। जर्मनी का डेक्स 0.6% और लंदन का FTSE 100 0.2% नुकसान के साथ कारोबार कर रहे थे।
A quick look at the US markets. Wall Street's main indices posted gains yesterday with increases in Amazon.com shares in the energy sector. Meanwhile, Treasury yields rose further and investors looked to economic data and Federal Reserve policymakers' remarks later in the week for clarity on the path for interest rates. The Nasdaq Composite Index gained 0.5%, the S&P 500 rose 0.4%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Index slipped 0.1%. So, Sushma ji, strengthening U.S. markets, and you had earlier said that the Fed is not looking at actually, giving any kind of an assurance that interest rates are not going to be raised. So, the U.S. market definitely looking stronger because, somewhere it definitely does impact the Indian market.
Yes, the American market is looking stronger, but you have to remember that in September, it has declined. The Nasdaq has come down, I think, 5.4% in September, S&P 500 by about 3.8%, and Dow Jones by 2.1%. So they may have, it may be picking up just now, largely because of big tech doing well there, Amazon you mentioned. But the markets there have also faced the impact of the Fed's continuous hawkish stance. The dollar has also been strengthening, and the dollar has been strengthened. Currently, I believe, at a 10-month high. And that has, of course, also linked to crude oil prices as well as the interest rate scenario over there.
So overall, we are saying that, volatility, which was like the buzzword about few months ago, and, we were saying that volatility is bound and is here to stay. And, of course, we never want to time the market. But the range of the spikes and the lows was quite wide. But we see more and more stability. Do you think, what do you think, in fact, could be something that could upset this so-called stable phase? Anything in the offing?
You're talking about Indian market?
European and American to begin with, the US ones.
Market. Well, the American markets are, their fundamentals are still doing very well. Their inflation is down quite a bit, even though the Federal Reserve is still adamant on bringing it down to their target level. But even so, they have their jobs data is extremely good. All the data coming out of America, of the US, is extremely positive. So the US economy is actually, doing rather well despite the problem of the Fed. The problems are occurring in other parts of the world. They're talking in terms of crude oil prices. They're talking in terms of China, the property issues over there. And these are contagion issues which are spreading around the world.
Right. We now move on to oil prices. Oil prices today fell more than 0.5% as stronger US dollar compounded concerns that demand for fuel would be held back by major central banks, keeping interest rates higher for longer than expected. In intraday trade, Brent crude was trading at $92.75 per barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude price was at $89.20 per barrel when reports last came in. So, Sushma ji, marginal cooling, of oil prices, very, very marginal, but still on the higher side, putting pressure on profit margins in India. Consumer demand also weakening, reports are suggesting, and inflation probably eating into profit margins. How do oil prices and all these figure into the future, because we've had good results from companies? Briefly, please.
This is certainly going to be a difficult issue because even though food is still over $90, this is very uncomfortable for India. Our oil import bill last year was $158 billion. And this year, if it continues to rise, our current account deficit will also widen. So I think we have to wait a little longer because the spike has been there for a month. So is it going to continue? Are we going to hit $100? We really have to wait.
Right.
जी और अब सोने और चांदी की बात कर लेते हैं। मल्टी कमोडिटी एक्सचेंज में अक्टूबर अनुबंध के लिए सोने का वायदा भाव 58,630 रुपये प्रति 10 ग्राम पर चल रहा था। समाचार तैयार किए जाने तक दिसंबर अनुबंध वाली चांदी 72,060 रुपये प्रति किलोग्राम पर कारोबार कर रही थी। न्यूयॉर्क मर्केंटाइल एक्सचेंज में सोना गिरावट के साथ $1,930.40 प्रति औंस पर कारोबार कर रहा था। सुषमा जी, आप कार्यक्रम में शामिल हुई और आपने इतने अच्छे से हमारे श्रोताओं को बताया, आर्थिक जगत की खबरों के बारे में चर्चा की, इसके लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Sushma ji, for joining us on the program. And now, listeners, before we close, a reminder of the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi distributes 51,000 appointment letters to newly inducted recruits. Key domestic share indices end almost flat. Sensex closes below the 66,000 mark. Nifty ends near the 19,650 level. And Brent prices slip 0.5% to $92.75 per barrel. And that's it in this edition of Market Mantra. Namaskar.
Market Mantra.